You walk into a room and immediately begin diminishing yourself with every word that spills from your mouth. You apologize for existing. You qualify your expertise. You fill silence with nervous chatter, and you wonder why nobody takes you seriously. Here is your ultimatum. Master your speech or remain powerless forever. Picture this. You enter your next meeting and say nothing for the first 30 seconds, watching others scramble to fill the void while you calmly assess the terrain. My words carry weight because I choose them carefully. The average person hemorrhages authority through their mouth every single day. They have been conditioned to believe that talking equals contributing, that agreeing equals belonging, and that explaining themselves equals being understood. This is the mindset of the conquered, not the conqueror. You have been taught to seek approval through your words when you should be commanding respect through your restraint. Every unnecessary word you speak is a small surrender of your position. Every time you over-explain, you signal weakness. Every time you feel comfortable silence with uncomfortable chatter, you reveal your inability to tolerate power. The cost of this verbal incontinence is measured not just in lost opportunities, but in the systematic erosion of your influence. While you ramble, others make decisions. While you justify, others act. While you seek consensus, others seize control. Your mouth has become a liability instead of a weapon, and until you recognize this fundamental truth, you will remain at the mercy of those who understand the strategic value of selective speech. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this dynamic 5 centuries ago when he wrote about the nature of power and perception. In chapter 18 of The Prince, he observed that successful leaders must master the art of strategic communication, knowing when to reveal and when to conceal. This is not about deception, but about understanding that your words shape not only what others think of you, but how much power they are willing to grant you. The prince who speaks constantly is the prince who rules briefly. Transform your relationship with speech, and you transform your relationship with power itself. This requires abandoning the democratic fantasy that everyone deserves to hear your thoughts and embracing the aristocratic reality that your words have value precisely because you ration them. When you speak less, people listen more. When you explain less, they respect you more. When you justify less, they trust you more. This is a paradox of powerful communication. Its strength lies not in what it includes, but in what it excludes. Consider the difference between two approaches to workplace disagreement. The powerless person immediately launches into a lengthy explanation of why they disagree, marshaling evidence, citing precedents, and appealing to fairness. They talk until their position is thoroughly understood and thoroughly dismissed. The powerful person states their position once, clearly and without justification, then falls silent. They let the weight of their disagreement settle in the room like smoke. When pressed for explanation, they repeat their position in fewer words, not more. When challenged, they do not defend but simply acknowledge the challenge and maintain their stance. This is the difference between argument and authority. The powerless person treats every conversation as a negotiation they must win through verbal volume. The powerful person treats every conversation as a performance where less is invariably more. When someone attacks your position, you do not immediately counterattack with words. You pause, you consider, you respond with surgical precision rather than verbal artillery. When X happens, do Y. When challenged, pause before responding. Count to 3. Let silence do the work that your anxiety wants to do with words. Your micro protocol for this week. Identify your 3 most common verbal habits that drain your authority. These might be apologizing before making requests, over-explaining simple decisions, or filling every pause with meaningless chatter. Each time you catch yourself beginning one of these patterns, stop mid-sentence if necessary. Say nothing. Let the silence exist. Notice how others react to this void and resist the urge to fill it with more words. The objection you will hear, usually from yourself, is that silence makes you appear rude or uninterested. This is the voice of your conditioning speaking. Silence does not make you appear rude. It makes you appear powerful. Rudeness comes from disrespect, not from restraint. My silence commands attention and respect. This principle extends beyond workplace dynamics into every sphere where power operates. In relationships, the person who constantly explains their feelings is the person whose feelings carry the least weight. In negotiations, The person who fills every pause with additional concessions is the person who will concede everything. In social situations, the person who never stops talking is the person nobody really hears. You must learn to distinguish between communication and commentary, between contributing and performing, between engaging and entertaining. Strategic silence functions as both sword and shield in the arsenal of the powerful. Machiavelli noted in chapter 19 that avoiding hatred while maintaining authority requires careful management of what you reveal and when you reveal it. Your silence protects you from premature judgment, while your selective speech ensures maximum impact when you do choose to speak. This is not about becoming antisocial or mysterious for its own sake, but about understanding that scarcity creates value in all markets, including the market for your thoughts. When you remain silent while others reveal their positions, you gather intelligence while protecting your own strategic advantages. When you refuse to explain every decision, you maintain the authority that comes from apparent certainty. When you decline to participate in every debate, you preserve your reputation for contributing only when your contribution matters. This is the fortress mind, impervious to the constant pressure to perform through speech. Strategic information management forms the foundation of all-powerful communication. Machiavelli understood in chapter 17 that being feared is safer than being loved because fear depends on your actions while love depends on others' feelings, which change constantly. This principle applies directly to information sharing. Revealing everything makes you dependent on others' goodwill, while strategic withholding makes others dependent on your discretion. You are not obligated to share every thought, feeling, opinion, or piece of information that passes through your consciousness. Most of your inner experience should remain precisely that, inner. The compulsive oversharer believes that transparency creates connection, and that connection creates influence. This is backwards thinking. Strategic opacity creates mystery, and mystery creates fascination. When people know everything about you, they have no reason to pay attention to you. When they know selected things about you, they remain engaged trying to understand the full picture. This is not about lying or manipulation, but about understanding that scarcity applies to information just as it applies to any other valuable resource. Consider how this principle manifests in different domains. In professional settings, the person who shares every detail of their methodology gives away their competitive advantage. The person who shares results while protecting methods maintains their strategic value. In social dynamics, the person who volunteers their complete opinion on every topic becomes predictable and eventually invisible. The person who chooses their battles carefully becomes someone whose opinion carries weight when they do share it. In negotiations, the person who reveals their constraints and alternatives early gives away their leverage. The person who shares information strategically maintains their position throughout the process. This does not mean becoming secretive for its own sake or withholding information that others need to do their jobs effectively. It means understanding that your information has value and treating it accordingly. When someone asks you for information, the powerful response is not to immediately provide everything you know, but to first understand why they need it and what they will do with it. Sometimes the answer reveals that they do not actually need the information, they simply want it. Want is not need, and you are not obligated to satisfy wants. When X happens, do Y. When someone asks you for information, pause and assess whether providing it serves your purposes or merely satisfies their curiosity. If it serves your purposes, provide exactly what is needed. If it serves only their curiosity, you can choose to share, decline politely, or redirect the conversation. Your micro-protocol involves practicing selective disclosure. This week, before sharing any information about your work, relationships, plans, or opinions, ask yourself whether sharing this information advances your position or weakens it. Notice how much unnecessary information you typically volunteer, and practice holding back everything that does not serve a specific purpose. The predictable objection argues that withholding information makes you seem secretive or untrustworthy. This misunderstands the relationship between trust and transparency. Trust is built through consistent action over time, not through information dumps. People trust those who demonstrate good judgment, and good judgment includes knowing what to share and what to protect. Moreover, mystery generates respect in a way that total transparency never can. The person who shares everything is the person nobody needs to work to understand. The person who shares strategically is the person worth understanding. My information serves my interests first. The timing of your speech operates as a force multiplier for everything you say. Machiavelli observed in Chapter 8 that severity must be well used, meaning it must be measured, purposeful, and precisely timed to achieve maximum effect. The same principle applies to all powerful communication. The right words at the wrong time carry no power. The adequate words at the perfect time can change everything. Most people speak when they feel like speaking rather than when speaking will have the greatest impact. This is why their words fall flat while others with less eloquence, but better timing command attention and influence. Strategic timing requires understanding the rhythms of the environments where you operate. In meetings, power belongs to those who speak after others have revealed their positions, but before decisions are finalized. In conflicts, power belongs to those who choose the moment of engagement rather than react to others' timing. In negotiations, power belongs to those who control the pace of information exchange and decision-making. This is not about manipulation, but about understanding that timing is a component of strategy, just like location, resources, or information. The practical application involves learning to recognize optimal moments for different types of communication. Critical feedback should be delivered when the recipient can act on it, and when privacy allows for face-saving. Important requests should be made when the other party has the bandwidth to consider them properly. Confrontation should be timed when you have maximum leverage and minimum witnesses. Announcements should be timed when they will receive appropriate attention, and when competing events will not overshadow them. Consider 3 examples of strategic timing. First, requesting additional resources from your manager works best when your recent contributions are fresh in their memory and when budget planning is active, not when they're stressed about deadlines or when fiscal constraints are tightest. Second, addressing relationship issues with partners should happen when both parties are calm and when sufficient time exists for full discussion, not in the middle of other stresses or when one person is distracted. Third, making important announcements in group settings should happen when the group is focused and when the announcement can receive appropriate discussion, not at the end of long meetings or when multiple competing priorities exist. When X happens, do Y. When you have something important to communicate, resist the impulse to speak immediately and instead assess the optimal timing for maximum impact. Consider the recipient's current state, competing priorities, and contextual factors that might enhance or diminish your message. Your micro protocol for mastering timing involves delaying non-urgent communication by at least 1 hour to allow for strategic consideration. Use this time to assess whether this is the right moment, the right setting, and the right approach for your communication. Practice recognizing the difference between your internal pressure to speak and external conditions that favor powerful communication. The objection to strategic timing claims that delaying communication is manipulative or dishonest. This confuses timing with content. You are not changing what you say or lie about anything. You are simply choosing when to say it for maximum effectiveness. All successful communication involves timing considerations. Even choosing to speak spontaneously is a timing choice, usually a poor one. Professional athletes do not execute their best moves whenever they feel like it. They wait for the optimal moment. The same principle applies to powerful speech. My words arrive when they will have the greatest impact. The principle of proportional response prevents most people from wielding their full communicative power. They respond to minor provocations with major speeches and major challenges with minor comments. This inverted proportion signals that they do not understand the value of their own attention and effort. Powerful people calibrate their responses to match both the significance of the situation and their own strategic objectives. They do not waste heavy artillery on insignificant targets, and they do not bring inadequate force to consequential battles. Proportional response requires accurate assessment of both the threat level and the appropriate level of engagement. Minor challenges often deserve minimal or no response. Major challenges deserve full engagement, but with surgical precision rather than emotional overreaction. The goal is not to win every small argument, but to maintain your position on issues that actually matter. This distinction preserves your energy for battles worth fighting, while preventing others from drawing you into endless smaller conflicts that drain your resources. Consider how this applies across different contexts. In online discussions, The proportional response to minor criticism might be no response at all, while a proportional response to false accusations that could damage your reputation might be a single, factual correction. In workplace conflicts, the proportional response to a colleague's passive-aggressive comment might be private clarification, while a proportional response to someone taking credit for your work might be public correction with documentation. In personal relationships, the proportional response to minor irritations might be letting them pass, while a proportional response to violations of major boundaries might be immediate and clear consequences. The key to proportional response lies in understanding that your attention is a finite and valuable resource. Every time you respond to something, you are making an investment decision. The question is not whether you can respond, but whether responding serves your long-term interests. Most provocations are designed to waste your time and energy on unimportant battles. Most challenges are attempts to draw you away from your primary objectives into secondary conflicts that serve others' agendas rather than your own. When X happens, do Y. Before responding to any challenge or provocation, assess its actual significance to your objectives and choose your level of engagement accordingly. Minor issues get minimal attention. Major issues get focused attention. Everything else gets no attention. Your micro-protocol involves creating a simple classification system for the challenges you encounter. Ignore, acknowledge, or engage. Practice sorting incoming provocations into these categories and responding only to those that merit engagement. Notice how much mental energy you typically waste on situations that do not actually affect your position or progress. The standard objection insists that failing to respond to every challenge makes you appear weak or unengaged. This is the opposite of reality. Responding to everything makes you appear reactive and easily manipulated. Responding proportionally makes you appear strategic and focused. Strong leaders do not fight every battle. They choose their battles based on what matters most to their overall campaign. My energy goes only toward battles worth winning. The management of your reputation requires understanding that others form opinions about you primarily through observation of your behavior patterns rather than your specific words. Machiavelli noted in chapter 19 that princes must avoid hatred while maintaining authority, which requires careful attention to how actions are perceived across different audiences. Your verbal behavior creates your communicative reputation, and this reputation determines how much influence others grant your words before you even speak them. People with strong reputations for powerful communication find that their words carry weight even when they speak casually. People with weak reputations for scattered, reactive communication find that even their best insights are dismissed or ignored. This reputation is built through consistency over time, not through individual performances. Every conversation either reinforces your reputation for powerful communication or undermines it. There are no neutral interactions when it comes to the long-term perception of your verbal authority. The elements of powerful communicative reputation include consistency in your standards, restraint in your responses, precision in your language, and strategic timing of your engagement. When people know that you do not speak carelessly, they listen more carefully when you do speak. When people know that you do not argue for entertainment, they take your disagreements more seriously. When people know that you do not make commitments lightly, they place more value on your agreements. This reputation becomes a force multiplier for every future interaction. Building this reputation requires deliberate attention to patterns rather than individual conversations. If you typically over-explain, you need to consistently practice restraint until restraint becomes your new pattern. If you typically react immediately to challenges, you need to consistently practice delayed response until strategic timing becomes your new pattern. If you typically justify your decisions, you need to consistently practice stating your position without seeking approval until authority becomes your new pattern. Consider how reputation operates in different spheres. In professional environments, your reputation for how you handle disagreement determines whether people bring you into sensitive discussions or exclude you from important decisions. In social environments, your reputation for how much you share determines whether people trust you with sensitive information or treat you as an entertainment source. In family environments, your reputation for how you respond to emotional manipulation determines whether family members respect your boundaries or continue testing them. When X happens, do Y. When evaluating any communication choice, ask yourself whether this choice reinforces the reputation you want to build or undermines it. Choose the option that serves your long-term reputation, even if it feels uncomfortable in the short term. Your micro-protocol involves conducting a weekly review of your communication patterns. Identify 3 instances where your communication reinforced your desired reputation and 3 instances where it undermined it. Use these observations to adjust your approach in similar situations going forward. The common objection claims that managing your reputation makes communication feel calculated and artificial. This misunderstands the nature of all social interaction, which always involves choices about self-presentation. The only question is whether these choices are conscious and strategic or unconscious and reactive. Managing your reputation simply means taking responsibility for the patterns you create rather than leaving them to chance. Authenticity does not require sacrificing effectiveness. My reputation serves my influence. The principle of strategic questions transforms you from someone who provides answers to someone who shapes the conversation itself. Most people believe their power lies in having the right answers, but real power lies in asking the right questions. Questions determine the framework within which answers become possible. Questions direct attention towards certain aspects of a situation and away from others. Questions reveal the assumptions underlying positions and expose the weaknesses in apparent strengths. When you master strategic questioning, you control the conversation without appearing to dominate it. Strategic questions serve multiple functions simultaneously. They gather information while revealing as little as possible about your own position. They force others to examine their assumptions, while keeping your own assumptions protected. They shift the burden of explanation onto others, while positioning you as a thoughtful evaluator of their responses. They create psychological pressure for truth-telling, because evasion becomes obvious when someone cannot answer direct questions clearly. The types of strategic questions vary based on your objectives. Diagnostic questions explore the reality behind claims and assertions. What evidence supports that conclusion? How do you measure success in this area? What would have to change for this approach to work? Probing questions examine the depth and consistency of positions. What happens if that assumption proves incorrect? How does this align with your earlier statement about priorities? What are the second-order effects of this decision? Redirecting questions shift conversations away from unproductive directions. What outcome are we actually trying to achieve here? What would need to be true for both of us to feel good about this arrangement? If we set aside the history, what does the current situation require? The power of strategic questions lies in their ability to expose truth without making accusations. Instead of telling someone their plan is unrealistic, you ask them to walk through the implementation timeline. Instead of accusing someone of inconsistency, you ask them to explain how their current position aligns with their previous statements. Instead of arguing with someone's conclusions, you ask them to describe the evidence that led to those conclusions. This approach forces them to confront weaknesses in their position, while leaving you room to adjust your own strategy based on their responses. When X happens, do Y. When facing unclear situations or questionable claims, resist the urge to provide immediate analysis, and instead ask questions that clarify the reality beneath surface presentations. Use questions to gather intelligence before revealing your position. Your micro-protocol for developing strategic questioning involves preparing 3 diagnostic questions before entering any important conversation. Practice asking these questions and listening to complete answers before offering your own thoughts or analysis. Notice how this changes both the information you receive and the dynamics of the conversation. The objection to strategic questioning argues that asking too many questions makes you seem interrogative or suspicious. This misunderstands the difference between hostile interrogation and genuine inquiry. Strategic questions come from curiosity and a desire to understand fully before acting, not from distrust or attempts to trap others. When delivered with genuine interest in the answers, questions enhance rather than damage relationships because they demonstrate that you take the other person's thoughts seriously enough to explore them thoroughly. My questions reveal my respect for truth over comfort. The final principle involves understanding that your verbal habits either compound your power over time or gradually erode it through 1,000 small surrenders. Every time you apologize unnecessarily, you train others to expect deference from you. Every time you over-explain simple decisions, you train others to question your judgment. Every time you fill silence with nervous chatter, you train others to see you as anxious rather than authoritative. These patterns become self-reinforcing because others begin to treat you according to the signals you consistently send. Breaking these patterns requires conscious attention to your automatic responses and deliberate practice of new approaches. This is not about becoming a different person, but about expressing your existing strength through more powerful communication habits. Most people already possess good judgment, clear thinking, and valuable insights. Their problem is not lack of substance, but poor presentation of the substance they already have. The compound effect of powerful communication habits creates exponential returns over time. When people consistently experience you as someone who speaks thoughtfully, they begin to seek your input on important matters. When people consistently experience you as someone who responds strategically rather than reactively, they begin to trust you with sensitive information. When people consistently experience you as someone whose words carry weight, they begin to make room for your influence in their decisions. Consider how this compounds across different timescales. In the short term, improved communication habits change how others respond to you in individual conversations. In the medium term, these habits change your reputation within your social and professional networks. In the long term, these habits change the opportunities that come to you and the level of respect you command in every new situation. This progression happens automatically once the patterns are established, but it requires consistent attention during the establishment phase. When X happens, do Y. When you notice yourself falling back into old patterns of weak communication, immediately correct course without self-judgment or extended analysis. Simply choose a more powerful option in that moment and continue forward. Your micro-protocol involves daily attention to one specific habit that currently undermines your power. Focus on changing just this one pattern until it becomes automatic. Then move to the next one. The systematic approach prevents overwhelm while ensuring steady progress toward more powerful communication overall. The predictable objection warns that focusing on powerful communication makes you seem calculating or manipulative. This fundamentally misunderstands the relationship between authenticity and effectiveness. You are not changing what you believe or value. You are changing how you present what you believe and value. Powerful communication serves truth more effectively than weak communication because it ensures your message reaches its intended audience with maximum impact. Manipulation seeks to deceive others for personal gain. Power seeks to influence others toward mutually beneficial outcomes through clear and effective communication. My power serves truth, not deception. Your transformation into someone whose mouth serves rather than sabotages your power begins with recognizing that this is a choice available to you right now. You do not need permission to speak more strategically. You do not need training to pause before responding. You do not need credentials to ask better questions. You need only the decision to treat your words as a valuable resource they actually are and to deploy them with the same care you would bring to any other important asset. The person you become through mastering these principles is not a diminished version of who you are now, but an amplified version. Your thoughts will carry more weight because you express them more strategically. Your influence will expand because you communicate more effectively. Your relationships will deepen because you engage more intentionally. This is not about becoming someone else. This is about becoming the most powerful version of yourself. Machiavelli understood that successful leaders must master both the substance of power and the appearance of power. Chapter 18 of The Prince emphasizes that perception often matters more than reality in determining who others follow and whose authority they accept. Your words create the primary evidence others use to assess your capability, judgment, and worthiness of respect. Every conversation is an opportunity to either build or undermine the perception of your power. Most people unconsciously undermine themselves through verbal habits that signal weakness, uncertainty, or desperate need for approval. The 7-day challenge that will begin your transformation requires specific daily actions that build new patterns while disrupting old ones. Day 1. Identify and eliminate one unnecessary apology from every conversation you have. Notice how many times you typically say sorry for things that require no apology and simply stop doing it. Day 2. Practice a strategic pause by counting to 2 before responding to any question or statement. Notice how this changes both your responses and others' reactions to them. Day 3. Eliminate all justification from your communication and replace it with simple statements of position. When someone questions your decision, state your position once and move forward. Day 4. Ask one strategic question in every important conversation before offering your own thoughts or opinions. Practice gathering information before providing it. Day 5. Identify your biggest information oversharing habit and practice strategic withholding. Share only what serves your purposes. Day 6. Choose one minor provocation or challenge that you would normally respond to and instead choose silence. Notice how much mental energy this preserves. Day 7. End one conversation earlier than feels natural to you. Practice leaving others wanting more rather than giving them everything. These daily practices will feel uncomfortable initially because they contradict years of conditioning toward reactive, approval-seeking communication patterns. This discomfort is evidence that you are changing, not evidence that you should stop. Powerful communication feels different from powerless communication because it serves different objectives. Instead of seeking immediate comfort through familiar patterns, you are building long-term influence through strategic choices. The resistance you encounter, both internal and external, confirms that these changes matter. Internal resistance comes from habituated patterns that feel safe even though they undermine your objectives. External resistance comes from others who benefited from your previous patterns and prefer you to remain predictable and easily influenced. Neither form of resistance deserves accommodation. Your commitment is to your own power, not to others' comfort with your powerlessness. The compound effect of these daily practices will become visible within the first week and undeniable within the first month. You will notice others listening more carefully when you speak, because you speak less frequently and more intentionally. You will notice yourself feeling more confident in conversations because you're no longer constantly defending or explaining yourself. You will notice opportunities appearing, because people begin to see you as someone whose opinion matters and whose discretion can be trusted. This transformation does not require you to become someone you are not. It requires you to become someone you already are, but have been hiding behind ineffective communication habits. Your thoughts are already worth hearing. Your decisions are already worth respecting. Your boundaries are already worth honoring. The only change required is presenting these truths in ways that compel others to recognize them rather than ways that invite them to dismiss them. 6 months from now, when people describe you to others, they will use words like strategic, thoughtful, and influential rather than words like talkative, reactive, or accommodating. This shift will happen automatically as a result of the patterns you establish starting today. Every conversation becomes easier when others expect powerful communication from you because your reputation precedes you into every interaction. The ultimate measure of your progress will not be how much you talk, but how much influence your words carry when you choose to use them. The most powerful people are not those who speak the most, but those whose words matter the most when they do speak. Your goal is not to become silent, but to become strategic. Not to withdraw from communication, but to make every communication count. Not to diminish your presence, but to amplify your impact. Your mouth will serve your power rather than cost you power when you treat every word as an investment in your future influence. This transformation begins with your very next conversation. Enter it knowing that you have the tools to communicate powerfully and the commitment to use them consistently. Your words will shape not only what others think of what you say, but what they think of who you are and how much power they are willing to grant you in every future interaction. My mouth serves my power, and my power serves my purposes.